It's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show. On today's show, I'm excited. We're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings versus the 49ers. What did I see? Is there a quarterback 2 on the horizon? Coming up next.
On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. One-of-a-kind opinions, big-name guests, the teams you care about every day. It's the Ron Johnson Show, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Welcome back. It's the Ron Johnson Show, a part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. This is going to be an exciting show today. Why? Because we're going to talk about the 53-man roster. Everybody loves the roster breakdown. I have about 40 locks, maybe 42. We'll see if we can get locked on this roster because I'm locked in. I think I have my 40 to 42 guys. And then, of course, there's some bubble guys, and that's up to the coaches. As we bring my producer, Sam Ekstrom, in, before we talk about Saturday's game versus the Vikings, Vikings versus the 49ers. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota for endless Vikings talk during the football season. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave a 5-star rating and review and tell your friends all about the shows on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Well, as we bring Sam Ekstrom into the show, my producer. Sam, it was good to see you at the game Saturday. Enjoyed it. Boring. Let's be real. It was boring. It was like 6-7 for most of the game. There wasn't any explosive plays. I'm watching all these highlights. The Dallas kick returner Turpin. Kids turning it out, punt return and kick return. We haven't had that excitement yet. So maybe it's Smith Marsette's going to break one loose this coming weekend. Maybe KJ Osborne. Well, no, KJ's probably not going to play. I think that's the biggest part too. When you rest 27 to 28 guys, you lose a little bit of the star power and the excitement that fans are expecting. But they sold over 52,000 tickets were scanned. I don't know what was sold, but over 52,000 tickets were scanned to get in the building. It was a packed house for the most part up until about the third quarter. Then you saw people start to dissipate. But, to get 52,000 in for a preseason game, that's just excitement around KLC and this offense. And this is what I took from Saturday, Sam. When you look at the bare bones, when you're building a house, you have to start with a frame. You have to also start with a foundation. So you get the foundation built, and then you start to get the framework in. And what we're seeing, and I'm still in a little bit from PJ Fleck. I know he does this. But what we're seeing is we're seeing a foundation being built, and we're seeing a couple studs going up. Like you could see the motions and the shifts, the bunch sets. You can see a little bit of the movement in the defense. Not a ton, though. I think the defense is going to be the part that we're not going to see until the drywall is up and they got that roof up. Like then I think they're going to start to put this defense together. You're going to see more of that house being built. But right now, even the skeleton bones of this offense, the basics, the shifts, the motions, I always talk about that. We're seeing it. But I brought up in the open, is there a QB2 on this roster? And after week 1, I was dead set on Kellen Mond. I thought, you know what? This guy's QB2, give him more reps. And then he regressed. And that's what it's like being in Vegas, man. You put money down, you win. You're all excited about it, and then boom, some dum-dum hits on a 16 when the dealer's showing like a 3. Like, come on, buddy. Like, just hold out. Let's see what happens. And that could be wrong. Maybe when the dealer's showing a 6 or something like that. I don't know. Then you don't hit for sure because he probably has a 10 coming.
Right.
But, you look at somebody that did that. So all of a sudden, Kellen Mond now has ruined the vibe because he didn't have a great game. You look at the first interception. I could blame that on the receiver because I felt like the route should have been taken high. He kind of he ran a corner route bend it back to the sideline, meaning he thought the DB was over the top. DB was kind of underneath him and trailing, so you should take it high. I don't know, but I'm guessing. I don't feel like Kevin O'Connell ran a play where 2 guys are that close together where one DB can play 2. And then you look at the second interception, that's on Kellen Mond. And let's be for real, though, if he had gone the other way, the other receiver ran a hitch in a press coverage, which you don't do. You run a fade route. So I think that's part of the other issue. And he wouldn't have known that. Like, I'm not going to let him off the hook. But if he looks that way, gets that safety running to the right, and then comes back and throws left like Peyton Manning said he tried to do to Ed Reed, and unless it's Ed Reed back there, you're going to complete the ball. Ed Reed just knows, like, I know you're going to look me off, so I'm going to make you think you looked me off, and then I'm going to flip my hips and go get the ball when you go the other way. We saw that tape, Reggie Wayne versus Ed Reed and Peyton Manning. Awesome, awesome commentary. So when you think about that, Kellen Mond's second interception was just, I stared down my receiver, and then my receiver ran an inside release fade, should have went outside, or should have stacked the DB and then tried to get far back to the sideline so Kellen can throw it to the corner of the end zone. But Kellen throws it right down the numbers, which you do not do on a fade route when there's a single high safety. That's not enough ground for an NFL safety. You got to give that safety way more ground to cover. This is the NFL, kid. This is not, you're not playing against William and Mary. Nothing against William and Mary. You're not playing against New Mexico State. Like, come on now. You're playing against a guy that's one of the top 1%ers. This guy's an NFL, even if he doesn't make the roster, he's one of the top 1% people to ever lace up cleats and put on a helmet and shoulder pads in the NFL. You can't throw the ball down the numbers. And so I think that's going to come, I hope that's going to come with just repetition, conversation, understanding what he's supposed to do in that moment. I'm pretty sure when he came off the sideline, looking at that play-by-play, they broke it down right away. Hey, throw the ball to the sideline. Like, fade him. You threw him down the numbers, and you left it up there. If you're going to throw that one, drive it in so it hits him in the chest like a spear. And the safety might come over, but it's more of a, I'm going to try to blow this up. And in today's NFL, you don't get that anymore. So the guy's going to try to bump him with the shoulder to make sure he doesn't blow him up and get a flag. But that's kind of what I took away from Saturday, Sam. When you look at QB2, I'm not sold. I thought we had it in week 1, and I'm not sold on it. Like, I just saw too many regressive plays. Like, he went backwards. And it's saddening because, again, Mason Rudolph, they talked about possibly so many teams. Nobody's done it yet. I mean, when you got Mitchell Trubisky and you got Kenny Pickett, you don't need a third receiver or third QB that can start. Mason Rudolph at 6'6", 235. He's what Sean Mannion, they think he is. Athletically, Sean Mannion mentally might be there, but get you a guy that can come in here. He can still help Kirk. He's been a backup to Ben Roethlisberger, so he knows the backup role. But if something were to happen to Kirk, I think Mason Rudolph is a guy that can win you some games. But again, you have to have two dance partners in any trade. There's a buyer and a seller. Do the Pittsburgh Steelers even want to deal with the Vikings? Out of there, that's AFC versus NFC, so maybe they don't want to give it to another AFC team because they're not going to have to face the Vikings to the Super Bowl. And we know they've seen them before. So, Sam, that's what I got. I don't think QB2, at least right now, we're playing the stock market. The stock right now, It's down. QB2 stock in this building is down. Where do you go with this?
Yeah, so KOC was asked about this after the game, and he did quite the delicate tiptoe around the question. He did not give a strong endorsement for his quarterbacks. And without saying it, he said it. He said, we're going to look outside the organization. And I think that's the right move. I've only seen one good quarter from Kellen Mond. I saw the fourth quarter against the Raiders. Other than that, it hasn't been great. It hasn't been great in camp, wasn't great in joint practices, and was not great on Saturday. And I think the same could be said for Sean Mannion. I mean, it's as much about Mannion as it is Mond and the team's decision to keep going back to Mannion. Mannion's probably terrific to have in that room during the week. He's great to help Kirk Cousins study and watch film. Not great if you need to win some football games with him. So I think the Vikings are destined to look for a Rudolph. Maybe they call the 49ers up, who they just saw, and say, hey, that Nate Sudfeld looks pretty good. Maybe you guys want to just roll with Brock Purdy as your backup. Give us Sudfeld. I think that there's a move to be made here, Ron, and maybe someone's going to get cut in the coming weeks, and the Vikings will have the answer fall right into their lap. The nice part is that Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt, so maybe this is much ado about nothing. But I do think it's an issue for this Vikings team. I'm curious what else you saw on Saturday. Did you think there were any big position battles decided?
No, I think T.Y. McGill continues to put his name on this roster. Like, he shows up every time. And this is what's so crazy about it. We were in the booth, Kwesi, Martin Vance, Gabe Henderson with Paul Allen, Pete Burstich. They're interviewing Kwesi. And literally during the interview, it was that I don't know if it was a strip by T.Y. McGill or what, but right then and there. And it was funny because Kwesi, I think on the broadcast, because as soon as he did, he turned to us and said, did I just say T.Y. Hilton? And he was like, oh, man. And but soon as he made the play, he's like, oh, and there's that T.Y. I think he said Hilton, but he knew what he was talking about, T.Y. McGill again. And so if I'm a GM and I'm working with my head coach, and we got some tough decisions to make, that's a guy where I'm going to Ed Donatell and saying, what do you think? Like 8th year, been around a bunch of teams, kind of a hitchhiker, but does he give us enough energy off the bench? Does he give us enough production off the bench? Is he a move guy, meaning he can move linemen, he can hold up to a guard and center? All arrows point to yes. Like he's moving the needle. He's getting the guys excited about it. He's making plays. He's doing the T.Y. Like he's doing it. For those listening on the podcast, I just did the T.Y. Hilton touchdown dance. But he's moving the needle. And every once in a while, you need an energy guy like that. You need a guy that knows that when things are going bad, you could just say, hey, go in there and be a wrecking ball. You don't have an assignment. Just go in and blow some people up. Like he seems like a guy that'll do it, but he seems like a guy that plays within his framework. Like he never looks like he's just out of control and going crazy and going to hurt somebody. Like he's playing. And that's what happens when you're 8th year. You know how to practice. You know how to play. Like if you're trying to set this tone and get a new culture set for practice even here, hey, you got to have a vet. You got to have a guy that knows how to practice. So that was the other thing I saw. I saw T.Y. McGill again. He's I mean, it's not penciled in. They can't, you're not taking a chisel to some concrete yet, but he's penciled in. They've kind of drawn the lines to kind of get the marker to come back next and make it solidified. But again, this thing is a week by week thing. Coaches, this is a what have you done for me lately league. And the good news today, when he's sitting there watching film with the coaches, he looks good. And I don't know about the other plays, but he did get a splash play. And that's what happens when you're a backup. You don't have to have, 27 plays. You just got to have that 1 or 2. And then other than that, don't make any mistakes. And they're like, oh, okay, this guy can really help us. And so, because he's not going to play 80 snaps. They're going to need 15 to 20 out of him to spell a couple guys. And that's just going to be his role. But yeah, no, that was another thing I saw. But as we transition, and we're gonna jump into the next segment. Like I said, we're gonna pick the daily 3, and the 53, and we're gonna go back and forth, kind of give our thoughts on the 53. I'll kind of go down the line. But before we jump into that, do you want instant post-game reaction from the insiders that cover your favorite teams? Check out our Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Following every Twins, Vikings, Wild, or Wolves game, our Locked On team hosts are broadcasting live with insiders. Catch Luke Braun and Sam Ekstrom after every Vikings game, and Brandon Warren and Nash Walker recapping the Twins game as the Twins slowly melt down and then give us hope. But they're going to give you every piece of that. Never miss a podcast by subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota's YouTube channel.
BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. You can find your favorite sports and events, the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Vikings did not cover on Saturday. In fact, they didn't cover by a lot, as the 49ers won that game by 10. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. The Tour Championship coming up this weekend at East Lake. Can't wait for that. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening. BetOnline, where the game starts.
This has been like, I'm not going to say gnashing of teeth because that's more biblical. Like, it's not that serious. Like, I don't get paid to do this. You don't get paid to do this. I don't know. I mean, unless you have some secret Quasi money that I don't know about. But yeah, like neither of us get paid. You wish Quasi was paying you, like Rick. Yeah. But here's where I go with this. Nobody really knows this roster yet. Like everybody can. You can, what's the word? You can assume. I don't know the word, but that's what I'm going to go with. You can assume. So let's look at QB1. We really only have Kirk. That's 1. On the depth chart, they have Sean Manning, Kellen Mond is 2. So let's just go with Kirk. That's 1. We got Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, Kene Nwangwu. That's 3. I'm going to jump over C.J. Ham right now because I'm still confused about what that's going to do. But you got Justin Jefferson, you got Adam Thielen, you got K.J. Osborne. I'm going to go with Smith Marset and B.C. Johnson. So now we're at 8, right? You got Irv Smith and you got Johnny Munn. That's 10. Now you go to Christian Darrisaw. Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury. I'm going to go Ed Ingram, Brian O'Neill. I'm guessing Jesse Davis because he's fighting for this. He's going to be your swing guard. I'll say Oliuta, I guess maybe right now. And then what's his name? Blake Brandel. I think they do need another tackle too. Now looking at this, I think they need to find another guy. Valerian Lowe, maybe. I don't know. They got to find a better backup option as tackles. But those are the 8. I say Austin Schlottman's been playing well, so that's my 9. And then I'm going to have to say Chris Reed as 10. So now I'm at 20 guys, right? So now we got our 20 on offense. When I go defense, I got Danielle Hunter, Armin Watts, Harrison Phillips, Dalvin Tomlinson, Za'Darius Smith. I'm going to go Jordan Hicks, Eric Kendricks, Dantzler, Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, Cam Bynum. That's 11. Now I got Lewis Seen. It's 12. I'm going to go Josh Metellus. I'm going to go Andrew Booth Jr. I'm going to go Shannon Sullivan. I got a Caleb Evans. And then from there, I'm going to stop because I think it's still a battle for that extra DB spot. So I'm at 16. Now I'm going to – or defensively, I'm at 16. And then I'm going to go Brian Asamoah, DJ Wanham, James Lynch, Asezi. Now I'm at 40, right? Yeah, I'm already at 40. So that's my 40. I got to say T.Y. McGill, 41, Patrick Jones, 42, C.J. Ham, 43, and Jalen Twyman and Jonathan Bullard. So that's the one for me. Jalen Twyman coming off getting shot. Remarkable what he's doing. Bad place, wrong time, bad situation. But to be back playing, let alone alive, that's huge. So hats off to him. Salute. But I'm going to give this to Jonathan Bullard right now. Jalen Twyman, I think, still can make the practice squad, so I'm not ruling him out. So that's my 43. From there, I think it's all up in the air. Like, I think that's where I can really say. That's why I think, now that I say those names, that's why I think, not completely, and I still haven't put a quarterback in there, so, that's 44, 45. You can only dress 46, I think. So, there's only like 2 more spots to dress a guy. You got 53. Those guys don't, those 9 don't dress, or whatever that math is. 7 don't dress. But yeah, that's where we're going to get down to the Chris Boyds, the Perry Nickersons, the Mike Browns, the Miles Dorns, the Harrison Hands, which Harrison Hand, I think Nate Harrison, no. The Chaz Surratts, like the Blake Lynches, like that's, that's where it's going to get murky. But I don't know, Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, so it seems like you left kind of one spot at most positions there to like adding a 4th running back, perhaps. Ty Chandler. Okay, I think Chandler makes the team. You left room for a 6th wide receiver. Yep. I think that's still a battle. I think that the coach mentioned he liked Jalen Naylor this week, but I think Myron Mitchell and Tristan Jackson are still battling. Albert Wilson is still battling. Like, I think there's a spot available. I think you need a 3rd tight end. You've got Irv Smith and Johnny Munt. Who gets the 3rd tight end spot? Zach Davidson had a couple pretty bad drops in that game. Is that going to knock him off the pedestal? Does someone like Ben Ellefson, the veteran, take that spot in kind of a blocking role, or do you go with a high-ender or a high-ceiling guy like Davidson who's more raw? And I think you've probably left a spot there at linebacker. You mentioned Blake Lynch. That's my guy. I think Blake Lynch showed really well last year whenever he played under Mike Zimmer. And I hope that he doesn't lose his spot on this team just because he's not part of this regime's, he's not a UDFA from Kwesi. He's part of the old regime. I think he deserves a spot on this roster. And then cornerback, I wonder who your 6th cornerback is. Perry Nickerson in the mix. Obviously, Caleb Evans probably has a spot. Chris Boyd had a good game against the Raiders. Where does he fit in his contract year? So I think that you've nailed probably those top 45 locks, and that's where you get into the decisions, those final 8 spots or so, where they've got to pretty much weigh players against each other. Interesting that you included BC as a lock. I tend to think he is now as well. I wouldn't have said that a couple weeks ago. I think BC has earned his way onto this team. Is that what you're thinking too?
Yeah, I mean, he's not making splash plays, but you don't need splash. Like Albert Wilson's might have just been a terrible Raiders defense. Like watching the film back, what was it? Flat and go. it was not great. Like, he didn't sell the flat route. Like, he didn't completely destroy the DB. Kellen Mond actually just made a great throw. Like, he put it in a perfect spot and made it easy. And that DB was just unaware. Like, once my DB runs flat and then he runs goal, I got to now locate. Clearly, the ball's probably coming. So I'm either going to locate his hands and I'm just going to punch through and, like, I'm going to run through his hands, or I'm going to get my head back to the ball because I know it's got to be coming because there's not a lot of room. And that play took so long. It's not like he can run a out, up, and then, like, come back or something, or out, up, and then drag across the field. Like, it's coming. Like, in the red zone, you would hope your team, because you got to know what the rush is. And so, yeah, that's probably just a bad defense. It wasn't a great route. So Albert Wilson did flash, but I think any of those guys could have probably beat that DB. And I think that's why, like, Albert Wilson didn't start out the game, and BC Johnson was the starter out the gate, because they're like, look, this is our guy. This is our wide receiver 4. Him and Smith Marset are 4 and 5. I don't know which is which, but they're 4 and 5. I think at 4 and 5, it doesn't matter. Like, you're gonna go with whoever needs to be in the position. Like, if BC's your outside guy and BC's your slot guy, and Justin Jefferson has to be in the slot, then Smith Marset comes in because he's going to go outside and run some kind of go route. But if it's you want Justin outside because you want him and Thielen working on the corners, then maybe BC comes in because he's in the slot and KJ Osborne's in the other slot. So I think it's all going to depend on scheme. Like, Keenan's going to have the guys that he knows what routes and what time and when they should be in the game based off, that's his job. So, yeah, I just think BC was consistent. Like, he ran good routes. He looks comfortable. But again, it's a preseason. But, I mean, he's done it. He's started games and backed up Adam Thielen. I think that's the difference. He's been a starter at one point in this league. And you can't knock that down. So I know Keenan's going to be looking at that. But it's time for the part of the show I love the most. It's the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. But before we get to that, when you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota, you're getting endless Vikings talk from local experts. Sam and I talk football every day on the Ron Johnson Show. I mean, come on, I'm a football guy. You know that. Reggie Wilson gives a sports anchor's perspective on superior sports talk. And the Minnesota Football Party brings together all the top Vikings podcasters in the city. Subscribe to, and you might get a tinfoil hat too, so check that one out. Subscribe to the free Locked On Sports Minnesota broadcast feed wherever you find your podcast, or find our videos on Locked On Sports Minnesota's YouTube channel. Well, Sam runs the show. 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Take it away, Sam.
All right, Ron, we've heard your thoughts on Kellen Mond and the QB2 situation. So here's my fresh question to you to kick off the Daily 3. Would you consider keeping all 3 of them? Would you keep 3 quarterbacks because you don't love either one and you just want to have that insurance? Is that a consideration for you?
It is. After getting to 40, I think we're at 43 without any quarterbacks on there. I just say one of the quarterbacks is 44. Yes. Because if you get to 45, and here's where I go with that. If you get to 45 and you still have just 2 quarterbacks, you're at 45. With those 8 spots, you still can add another DB. You still can add another running back. You still can have a 6th receiver. You still get another linebacker in there. And then you still have room for another DN or outside backer or special teams guy. Oh, you know what? You don't have room. You know why? Because I forgot about punter, kicker, and long snapper. I knew somebody we forgot. Sorry to the specialist. Who needs those,
Ron? No,
I'm sorry,
okay.
specialist. I'm so sorry, specialist. We totally did a 53-man roster without a punter. Mike Zimmer would be happy with that, though. He hates punters and kickers. We totally forgot about the specialist.
Every time. So, go for it on 4th down and go for 2.
So 44, I could see that, because even if we throw the 3 guys, long snapper, punter, kicker, which is funny, too, because when you look at the depth chart, actually, they don't give a spot for them. Now that I realize that, you got to go to another slide to see your specialist. But those 3, I think the punt returner and kick returner are going to be within the running backs. Kene and Smith Marset seems like they're going to be kick return, punt return, so you don't need an extra one there. But you do need those 3, kicker, punter, and long snapper. And so when you think about that, now you're at 47. You're at 47. You can get to 48 with one more quarterback addition. So, yeah, I could see them going 48 because you still have 5 spots. So now that question of those 5 spots does get a little hairier because it's not 8 anymore. It's not 8. So do you need a 6th receiver? Do you need a fourth running back? Probably not. I would say 6 receiver in this passing offense. Do you need a third tight end though for sure? So we know that. So that's another one that's gone. That's 49. You got to have a third tight end. Yeah. So we're at 49 now with a third tight end, an extra receiver. Yeah, that's gonna be good. So no, I definitely could see them doing that though. I do see them keeping 2 additional quarterbacks, possibly if they're not sold on like a Mason Rudolph, or something like that they could trade for and a guy that they really want in there. Yeah, I could see them doing that. I mean, why not?
I will say this. It does feel a little weird that they would only have 2 quarterbacks in the entire organization. I mean, typically, if you're going to keep 2, you would have a third quarterback on the practice squad, at least a developmental piece, like a Kyle Sloter or Taylor Heineke type that they've had in the past. They don't even have that in the organization.
Well, guys are going to
right
get
now.
cut, so they'll probably pick one up.
Yeah, feels like it. All right, you touched on T.Y. McGill earlier. Is he the story of the preseason so far? We've had 2 games. He's got 3.5 sacks. He had 4 QB hits on Saturday. He was blowing up run plays, top PFF performer for the Vikings on defense. And we found out that the T stands for Tyrone and the Y doesn't stand for anything, Ron. It's just a nickname. It doesn't mean anything. That's the intel we have on T.Y. McGill now. Is he your favorite story of training camp?
I hate when people do stuff like that. Like, who just throws a Y on your name? Like, is it Ty McGill and he's changed it to T.Y.? Like, because you said it's Tyrone. Is it spelled? Maybe it's spelled T. Is it spelled? Do you know how it's spelled? Is it T-Y?
Yeah, and there's not a Y in it. It's Torrone. So that theory doesn't quite hold up.
I hate people in names sometimes. I really do. I hate when people just add stuff to their names. Like, oh my goodness. But yeah, so man, at least give us a reason why. Like my daughter's friend, she just met her softball friend, her new teammate, and her nickname is Blue. Nothing to do with anything now, except for when she was born. Worst story I've ever heard. She was choked by her umbilical cord and turned blue. So the name stuck. And they call her Blue. I'm like, I don't want her memory of you almost dying in the womb. Like, I'm not gonna, like, my daughter fell asleep during child labor and we thought she wasn't breathing. No, she was just sleeping and lazy, our youngest. And that's how she is now. She does not care about anything. She didn't care that the doctor. So we're like, we're not going to call you sleepy. Like, we're not going to remember that because that was like gut wrenching. Like, I was panicking. The thing was beeping. They couldn't get a pulse. Nope. She was just really sound asleep. Did not care. Didn't care that somebody was reaching in, trying to pull her head out. No, just I'm taking a nap real quick. I'm tired. I got a long day. So T.Y. though, yeah. So when you look at the journeyman, he is, because there's been nothing. Like, Kellen Mond almost stole the show. If he had another game like he had last week, 2 touchdowns. He did have 2 though, but it was 2 interceptions, so he went backwards. So if he had another game like he had last week, or maybe Albert Wilson had 2 more touchdowns or something, or had another big play or big deep ball, he could possibly be in the talk. Game 3, I don't think the starters are going to play this one, because why at this point? Like, you've made it this far, you've gotten 80 snaps as coach wanted to point out. They got 80 snaps against the 49ers, so that's a full game in practice. So 80 snaps, that, like I said, that's a full game. So he's like, my ones 160 160 total, 80 to the defense, 80 to the offense, ones versus ones. I'm good, and so that's why I think, yes, T.Y. has stolen the show. He is the talk. And again, guys like that, we're humans. The coaches are watching it just like us. They're getting excited just like us. Of all the guys on the bubble, he's been the most exciting. So, yeah, he stole the show so far in preseason. And, yes, I do think there's a spot. I said that earlier. There's a spot for him on this team.
Yeah, put him on the team and prove that preseason means something. Like, if a guy comes out of nowhere with 4 sacks, he does deserve a spot on the team. I think that's how it should work. Last one here. Andrew Booth Jr., in probably the worst news of Saturday night, goes down with an ankle injury and does not return. We know that Andrew Booth Jr. is already fragile. He's got a pretty big injury history, and for that to occur has people panicking. So, Ron, let's assume that Andrew Booth Jr. here misses some time. Who is next in line to fill in at cornerback, assuming that was your first guy off the bench?
So I'm not sure if is Mackenzie Alexander on the roster? Did he go to the Bengals, or is he
Alexander is gone. He signed. I think the Dolphins signed him.
Okay. I was gonna say because I know he hadn't signed a while back. I was gonna say because that could be an option because I know that's what teams wait for. They wait for injury to see like, do we put him on the pup list and then we bring a guy in? Like, because if it's 6 weeks for sure or 6 to 8 weeks, then put him on the pup and bring a guy in. Like, there's no reason to like keep him on the active roster and you're just rehabbing him every day trying to ice his. Because an ankle, there's nothing to do besides lift weights, make sure you don't lose any strength in your legs. Other than that, it's just ice and stem and pain management. Like, they're gonna give him meds and he's gonna take some CBD and do whatever he does to relax, get that inflammation out, rub some oil on it, acupuncture, all the things to try to get that cartilage or whatever, that ligament to heal. That hopefully it's not like a bone and it's just a ligament because it was non-contact when I was watching it and I was talking to guys in the booth. It was non-contact. So, it's one of those basketball type things where you just roll your ankle. It's gonna be a nagging thing because every time he turns weird, it's gonna like re-injure it. Like it's just nothing, and you're gonna have to like go through the pain a little bit, whether depending on how bad it is and what your pain management looks like. Retape it and get back out there. If he's limping, you're done for the day. So who knows? The good thing is they don't have to play a game for like 2 or 3 weeks, September 11th. And so I would say we haven't seen much from Chandon Sullivan. We know he's the nickel. But Chandon Sullivan, I don't know if he still can go outside. A lot of times when guys get kind of thrown into that nickel, they lose the ability to go outside just from a mental standpoint because they're so used to being in the slot. But yeah, Caleb Evans, I think he looked good. He looked good Sunday. He was challenging every ball, didn't look out of place. Like, we talked about the guy that wore 21 last year. We were always talking about it felt like he was always behind or always kind of a step too slow. Caleb Evans looks like he's playing with confidence. And the fans love him. He's one of the most excited guys to be here. He tweets every day about the fans, the stadium, the Skull chant. He can't wait for this. He's a guy that's really relishing the moment and excited to be a part of this organization. But yeah, Caleb Evans, I would say, would be the next guy up. Like, I think he's earned it so far. He looks better than the other guys behind him. Like Chris Boyd hasn't shown enough. He looks out of place. Harrison Hand doesn't look good. Looks unaware at times. So yeah, Caleb Evans would be the next guy up.
Yeah, loved his physicality. I noticed the same thing you did. He had the forced fumble. He was wrapping up ball carriers in the backfield. Boyd has the experience, though. He's been around the block a few times, so there's a little decision there to make, assuming that Boyd makes the team.
Yeah, well, that'll do it for the Ron Johnson Show. We'll see who makes this 53. Comment below. Let us know on the chat, Twitter, wherever you're finding this clip. Let us know. Who do you think makes the 53? I mean, we definitely know who's the locks. Is there going to be a QB3 on this roster? Yes or no? Let us know what you think. Does T.Y. McGill make the roster? And who's the next corner up if Andrew Booth Jr. has to spend time out? Subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota for endless Viking talks from local experts. And that'll do it. Have a great day.
And there was some breaking news that came across the wire just after we finished filming. Nick Mullins traded to the Vikings for a future 7th-round pick. He will definitely be in the mix to be the Minnesota Vikings backup, and you can get full reaction to that trade and that Nick Mullins acquisition on today's Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Endless Vikings talk with local experts.